We'll call the RCDC meeting to order on April 21st, 2022. It is 12:05. Let's do a roll call here. Emily Doran here.
Pat Sheehan here.
Ryan Ryder, more or less here.
Barry O'Camber here.
Colin Harvey here.
Wonderful. Do we have anyone here or online for public comment? No online?
We do not have anyone here. I will make a super quick announcement. We have a new city secretary. Today is her first day,
Woo-hoo!
Desiree Adair. Just want to introduce her to everybody. So she'll be you'll see her around here a lot now. So she'll be helping out with RCDC. So just wanted to introduce her. We're excited to have her.
Welcome.
What's her name?
Yeah, I'm
What's
sorry.
her name?
Yeah.
This is Desiree Adair.
Okay.
Hi, Desiree.
Yeah.
Welcome. What's your favorite color?
Favorite color? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say black.
I was going to say that because you're wearing a black
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
and
wanna
what do you
jump
do for
in?
fun? What do you do for fun? Yeah.
Like lots of fun or?
Whoa!
I was gonna say like,
Okay.
watching movies, different
Okay.
things.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Glad to have you. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Discussion and possible action on the minutes from the March 31st, 2022 RCDC meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thanks, Pat. A second?
Second.
I wasn't here, so.
Second.
Great. A second to approve. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. Now the regular agenda. Let's hear it for Aaron Farmer. Come on up. The presentation from the retail coach on the retail market analysis of the 2022 update. And thank you for being here today with us.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's good to be in front of you again. I think the last time I was in front of you, maybe November time period, if I remember correctly. So have some updates for you. We really didn't officially start working together until February. So once contracts and all those things were figured out, so this retail recruitment strategy is still fresh. Kind of getting things going and going there. We do have some updates for you. So I've got a short presentation I'll put together. I want to talk about. To start with the market analysis. So if you remember from 2 or 3 years ago, we did an initial market analysis kind of right around when COVID came about, if you remember that, and wanted to see what does the market look like here? Where are people coming from to shop and eat in the community? What does the real estate market look like? We also did a zoning analysis to see what the zoning was throughout the corridor, if there were changes that needed to be made at that time. So I want to just kind of take you through things and how they've changed in the last couple of years. So if you'll remember, we look at cell phone analysis or cell phones. And if you shop at Trader Joe's or you go eat at Chinatown, we know that you're there. We know where you came from. It's a little bit scary to think about, but we know where you're coming from. So we know that people are coming from outside of the community to shop and eat here in Rollingwood. Which is good. That's what we want to see. Is we want to see a large trade area where people are coming from outside of the community as well to shop here. So we're serving the residents of Rollingwood, but also that retail trade area. So just to give you some examples here, I looked at the last 12 months for the shops at Mira Vista. So what that looked like, you had 1 million visits to that shopping center over the last 12 months, and these are fresh numbers here. So basically from April of 2021 to April of 2022 is what we looked at. So you had 284,000 consumers making 1 million visits. So 284,000 unique customers making 1 million visits. So obviously those of you that maybe live here make more repeat visits to Trader Joe's or somewhere else in the shopping center. But you're also pulling people. We looked at a map. I think I have it here. Let's see. Yeah, a map of where the shops at Mira Vista pulls consumers from. And obviously, you see a lot of red around Rollingwood, but you see it if you look out a little bit, towards the west, towards the south, towards the north, towards the east. Really, Trader Joe's is driving a lot of the traffic to that shopping center in particular. But that just goes to show you, people are coming from outside of the community. We have a lady that we go to church with, and I live out in Dripping Springs, like west of Dripping Springs, and she comes to Trader Joe's like once or twice a month. So she takes everybody's orders, and my wife will give her our orders, and she'll come in and get it for everybody, and then bring it to church on Wednesday night. So what's funny is her house. There's a red dot in Dripping Springs right above where she lives. So we know that's happening. But we wanted to just see how things have changed and what that looks like. So if you'll remember, we determined a primary trade area, and then also what we call a retail trade area. Now, primary trade area represents roughly 80% or so of those consumers that are shopping or eating in Rollingwood. So that trade area, pretty large, right at or just under 30,000 for 2022. So very similar to what it was a year or two ago. We haven't seen a tremendous amount of growth population-wise in that primary trade area. Now we've seen housing values, we've seen incomes and those sort of things go up. As an example, your average household income now is roughly $230,000. Now, to tell you what that's up 20,000 just in a year's time period. So average household incomes in the region are growing up, but specifically this core area is going up there. So this is that primary trade area. So if I'm a retailer, I'm a developer, I'm a broker looking for somewhere to put my prospects or put retail prospects into a community, this is what we want to know. Who is our prime consumer? This is our bread and butter. We know they're going to be in the stores on a regular basis. We also looked at a retail trade area. So this is a much larger area, but these consumers are coming to Rollingwood as well. So maybe they're coming on the weekends, maybe they're making trips once a week, those sort of things. Much larger, extends further out to the west. So 113, almost 114,000 within this retail trade area. So bottom line, even though Rollingwood is not very large population-wise, we serve a trade area that's large. We have consumers. We have people that are coming in on a regular basis. Incomes went up in this area too. Incomes are about 193,000 in this retail trade area. That's also up about 20 to 25,000 in the last year. So those numbers look good. Like seeing that, like this is the information retailers and restaurants want to see. Right now, what we are working on is we are actually working on talking to property owners. We're working on talking to brokers, developers, maybe that represent the shopping centers here, to get an idea of what leases are coming up. What type of space do they have available? For example, and I think I have a slide here in a minute. We're talking to a shopping center owner that right now has about 2,000 square feet available in their shopping center, but most of their leases are coming up for renewal this next year, or within the next few months, actually. So there is going to be an opportunity to land some new retail, some new restaurant prospects in this shopping center in particular. So any questions on the market analysis portion of it? Obviously, I just hit high level. I think y'all have seen the newer reports or have access to that. So it dives a lot deeper into it. But the numbers, everything looked good from that standpoint.
So just quick question.
Yes, sir.
You said you were mentioning you were speaking with a retailer who had spotted. Is that the one? Is that you're talking about within Rollingwood corridor, or is it just were you speaking in generalities?
In the Rollingwood corridor.
Okay.
Yeah. Developer that is actually within the city limits.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, we see, as we look through the corridor, we see some properties that are maybe not serving their highest and best use that maybe need a refresh as far as what as tenants, or a refresh as far as what the buildings look like, and those sort of things to really keep up with the overall market. So that was one that we've been talking to for a while now, but they're ready to pull the trigger, do some redevelopment, and see some things happen there.
So
Right.
in that situation where you have someone you've spoken with,
Sure.
we have this analysis, just thinking of next steps. Traditionally, would a development corp like ourselves start looking at ways to either incentivize that developer to
Sure.
either redevelop, or there's something we should be doing proactively to help make sure we get the right clientele from a business
Absolutely.
standpoint in?
So great question, and that was going to be one of the things we're going to talk about. Next steps
Okay. Well,
is
then
there.
yeah, sorry.
Well, that's perfect though. Next steps is that developer wants to meet with the city, wants to meet with the group here and talk about what their plans are. This developer is working on some pretty awesome things in downtown Austin. One is a big condo project with retail, quite a bit of retail and restaurants. There is a big retail project they're working on right now that's going to be higher end retail in restaurants in Austin. They're working on as well. So that's actually, I was going to try to coordinate with Ashley after this meeting to get something set up to talk through that. So, you know, I definitely would not necessarily lead with incentives or anything like that, but that is something to probably be ready for. Just with the cost of construction right now, just the world we live in right now, there's some higher prices there that might need a little bit of incentivizing.
Okay, just curious. Thanks. Just trying to make sure we can take action from it this
Yeah,
time.
no, I'm
instead
glad
of
you
2 years ago when
did.
we
So
didn't.
you should be hearing from us in the next couple of weeks to get that
Okay.
meeting set up. So I want to talk to you about the retail recruitment strategy. So again, we're new into this, and that we started mid-February, I think is when it was. So we're 2 months in, but we've already had some good things happen there, and we'll talk about that. So if you'll remember, what that process looks like is identifying those prospects, identifying retailers, identifying restaurants, identifying developers. We talked to several property owners in the past 2 years or so ago that said, look, I'd be willing to sell my property. I'd be willing to bring in another developer to redevelop my property and those sort of things. So we're going after retail and restaurant prospects as well as developer prospects. Pay no attention to those retailers that are on the screen there. That is just some examples there. But what I wanted to share with you is every retailer. So whether it's a very high-end retailer or restaurant or a lower-end retailer and restaurant that we're looking at for another community, they all have certain customer criteria, or they all have site selection criteria. You know, some of them look for 2,000 square feet, when others look for 5,000 square feet. Some look for drive-throughs, others don't. So what we've done is we have gone through our retail matching system and identified retailers and restaurants that should be in Rollingwood that aren't in Rollingwood. So you fit their demographics, you fit their trade area population. Store spacing is something they pay a lot of attention to. Cannibalization is something they look at. If they're going to locate a store here, they want to make sure that's not going to cannibalize their location off of South Congress, for example. So we've looked at a lot of that. We've paid close attention to that. And what we have done so far is we've developed an initial retailer match list. And what I want to make sure and say here is just because they're on this list does not mean they're going to locate here. And just because they're on this list does not mean we have to go out and actively try to recruit them. So this is these are retailers and restaurants that fit your market based on those criteria I talked about. They are all expanding. If they're on this list, they're looking for additional locations. So that's also part of the criteria. But Apricot Lane, Peter Millar, Duluth Trading Company, Hop Dottie Burger Bar, if you're familiar with Hop Dottie, Via 313, very popular pizza chain here in the growing pizza chain. Snooze, breakfast and lunch eatery, Tiny Boxwoods, popular amongst a lot of people in this area. Kills, Our House, Natural Paws, Pet Supermarket. One thing we noticed in looking at the demand analysis, people within this trade area spend a lot of money on pets, and there is an opportunity. That was actually your fastest. That was actually your fastest growing sector that we're projecting over the next 5 years. So I think that's why some of those came up here. Salada, so salad, kind of natural type restaurant. Yard House, Tumble 22, which is a chicken.
Place.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Cycle Gear showed up as a fit. So similar to like if you think of like Trek, the bicycle, they sell a lot of the bicycle items. Being as close as you are to the trail system, Zolker, all of that. Maloof's is like a higher end clothing type, men and women's clothing. Luna Grill, Taverna Rosa, I don't know if that's even how you say it, and then Piata, which is Italian street food. So these are the top, let's say 25 or so matches that showed up. We plan to add to this list. Like I said, we can take away from this list. If y'all have ideas or there's favorites that y'all that you frequent, retailers or restaurants you'd like to see in the community, we can do an analysis to see if they're a fit, and we can add them to the list. So I guess kind of what we're looking for, and I don't have to know the answer today, but is, hey, yes, we like this list. Would ask you to go home and maybe think about some additions to add to it. But just looking at the numbers, looking at our matching system, which is very scientific in how we do that, these are the fits. So any questions on that so far?
how does our price per square foot from a retail standpoint compare to what they look for? So like their break-even analysis, we also got to be attractive to them, right? So out of that, is that included in the analysis, or is it?
So there's not a whole lot of space available right
Right.
now, to be completely honest with you. So
Uh-huh.
it's really hard to look at comps as to where it sits right now, especially like let's say that developer we're talking about, if
Yeah.
they redevelop their center, all of these that are here are going to be able to pay higher rates, and higher rates are going to come with Rollingwood, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with everybody on this list being able to pay what rates you're going to demand.
Like
to.
Yard House is just a massive building, so like we don't really have space for that currently in their current setup. Like Hop Dives and those ones.
It would have to be, a redevelopment or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you have a list of deletions that it would be possible? For example, we've got is it Goodwill or what, over there, right off of,
Yep.
PK Road at where, is it Ridgewood that comes out?
Uh-huh.
Anyway, that always has crates and boxes stuck out there in front of the store and Goodwill, yes, it's Goodwill. And not that I don't like Goodwill, but there's a higher and better use for that property.
Yes, sir. So I don't have a specific list of deletions, but we have done a highest and best use analysis, and we can get you a copy of that. And that's where we basically have gone property by property throughout the entire Rollingwood corridor, and a lot of what you're talking about is in that analysis. So I think Ashley and I can get you a copy of that to take a look at.
How do you action something like that? Because that one's a little bit different. Is that basically why you include the developer portion of the recruiting strategy?
It is.
Or
So
are there things that we should be doing to be monitoring when that happens and disincentivizing that to continue?
So both, I guess, if that makes sense. So we've looked at, in that highest and best use analysis, we made recommendations. So like there's certain zoning that is current on certain properties. Now, if that property was to ever go up for sale or change of use, we've actually put together a plan to activate and maybe look at changing the zoning of a certain property if something goes up for sale, so that you don't have that same type of use come back into that space, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or make it even could even be more specific zoning for something to help change that. So what we did, and this has been a couple of years, again, COVID kind of slowed things down a little bit, but we did talk to a lot of the property owners and a lot of the shopping center owners. A lot of them are not from here. A lot of them are from outside of the community. But we do have a list that of those properties that have said, hey, yes, if you find somebody interested, a retailer, developer, bring them to us. So that's part of this strategy is kind of activating some of these things to happen.
And one last question. In addition to zoning, do we have the ability to change, like, I just think about this in the same way, like a neighborhood association can have certain standards. Can you change standards such that something like a Goodwill at some point in time is no longer compliant with a look and feel of a
So
space?
the state has made it hard to do a lot of those things in particular.
I feel like I'm asking really bad questions.
Yeah.
Take a
So no,
different company.
that's good. The state's made it harder. Cities used to be able to compare or to be able to control what buildings looked like or what types of materials they used. The state has made it hard to do a lot of those things, but there are ways, I don't want to say around it, but there are ways to, through a specific zoning or a specific like special use permit, those sort of things that we can have a little bit more control.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that?
One more question. Not necessarily about this, but I know a lot of us got reassessed taxes and property values here recently. Does the same thing apply to them? Like to the business corridor, do they have the same process? I should probably know that, but I don't. So
Absolutely.
did
So
all of those? So to me, that's an opportunity that they're probably either undervalued or, like everyone else, underdeveloped and looking for more money. So
I'll give you an example. I got my appraisal notice in the mail after I woke up from fainting last night. I got to actually was thinking about this project, and timing is perfect for what we're talking about right now, because a lot of us woke up to, a lot of the businesses woke up to appraisals that were double. That's what mine was last night, double what it was the year prior. And so yes, I mean, timing for that is honestly perfect, because you're going to, I think you will see property owners, business owners that are realizing they've been priced out of not just Rollingwood, but priced out of really the entire region for certain things like that. So that you do have a lot of long-running businesses here in town, a lot of long-running ownerships here in town that I think are going to change over in the near future because that's one reason.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure they were on the same schedule as everyone else.
They absolutely are. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good, but great. I mean, I literally thought about that last night as I was getting ready for this because it's going to have an impact, no question. So what I did want to share with you is we are also reaching out to not just retailers and developers, but we're reaching out to brokers. So especially in this region, a lot of what we see, the brokers act as the gatekeepers for the retailers and the restaurants. So, you know, a typical broker, let's use JLL for example, they might represent 20 different retailers and restaurants or more. So we're also doing outreach to those brokers. I'm going to talk about a few that are already interested in the community, or a few retailers that are interested in the community. That came from talking to a brokerage firm. So wanted to mention that as well. Through the brokerage community, through some contacts we already have, we have been made aware that Hopdoddy, Via 313, and Snooze are actively interested in finding locations here in Rollingwood. So pretty exciting, I would think. It's a change. It's something new. That came from one brokerage firm that we had a meeting with 2 weeks ago in Dallas. So these are some that as we start talking to these property owners, these existing centers, hey, not only are we looking to recruit retailers for you, hey, we've got 3 that want to take a look at your center. So pretty exciting to have that already, as new as we are into this project, but excited to see that. And I think more will come. We have not done active outreach yet because we want y'all to look through that list and give us some direction. But I definitely wanted to share that with you. Good example of a developer that's looking to make changes, Rollingwood Plaza. So think of where Chinatown is and some of the other, where we run into some parking issues in that shopping center. They have about 1,900, 2,000 square feet available right now. Most of, if not all of their leases come up at the end of this year, or maybe even, or just on month-to-month leases right now. So the importance of having that meeting in the next couple of weeks is they're looking to how do they change up the way that looks going forward. So perfect example of why timing is perfect for something like this. And then lastly, we represent Rollingwood at these trade shows. So I mentioned that we talked to this broker a couple of weeks ago. That was at the International Council of Shopping Centers convention in Dallas. That was March 31st through April 1st. We're actually going to be in Vegas representing clients, Rollingwood, May 22nd through 24th. So I'll be having meetings with some of these retailers and restaurants we talked about at that conference. And then there's a big one that we need to attend, and I'm actually going to recommend, Ashley doesn't even know this yet, but I'm actually going to recommend that Rollingwood have a presence, not just through us, but maybe a board member or two or a city manager at this conference. It's the Retail Live Conference, September 1st of 2022. It's at the Marriott downtown in Austin. Basically, it's a half-a-day event, but it's where all the brokers, all the retailers, all the restaurants in this region get together and try to make deals. So it's a chance to get in front of a lot of these retailers and developers we're talking about. But since it's local, they're doing deals in the area, and it makes sense. But I think that's it for today.
So you don't need us in Vegas.
Ashley.
I will tell you, I have been going to these ICSE conferences for 15 years now. This will be my 14th year there. It's always good to have a presence there if you're serious about recruiting retail and restaurants. But for sure, the Austin conference I think makes sense, and I think we can handle Vegas. But anytime y'all want to send somebody to these conferences with us, I think it's a good thing. So.
Yeah. No, this is great.
I have a question for you. Is there, just kind of thinking about to your points, kind of early on in the process,
Sure.
very cool to see a couple things already. In your experience, is there a point, like a typical point in a project like this, whether it's 18 months or 2 years, that you kind of see a tipping point where you replace a Chinatown, you get 4 more prospects, and then all of a sudden it starts to be a pull? I would assume that happens. I'm
It
curious.
does. A lot of times it's a domino effect. Okay, once once these other property owners see one property owner make changes,
Yeah.
a lot of times it's a domino effect. You see it happen again. Things have slowed a little bit because of supply chain issues. Things have slowed a little bit because of what we've been through with COVID and those sort of things. But what we're seeing now is it's starting to pick up again. So right now, everybody wants to be in Texas, but specifically everybody wants to be in Central Texas. So we're seeing concepts from outside. We're seeing concepts from California that are moving here. We're seeing concepts from the DFW area that they want to be here. So usually, the development process. So usually from initial conversation with a retailer or developer, it's that 18 to probably 24 month time period before you see action happening or you see them open on the ground. However, you've got some existing shopping centers that have space available that you could see some of those things happen quicker. But what you said, 18 months is probably a good read on that. 18 to 24 months as far as initial contact to when they're open for business, just based on construction timelines and
Sure.
those sort of things.
Thanks.
Colin, it seems to me that given the difficulty of developing in Austin, one of the tipping point benefits that we think about is having the word out on the street that you can do something in Rollingwood a lot faster and cheaper than you can in Austin as far as
Yeah.
building permits and zoning if we need it. Now, you talked about, you've done some zoning look. I haven't seen a report as to what you think we need to do, and that's not within this committee's ambit, but nevertheless, if we can have a talk with the other parts of the city, the permitting people, the mayor, the zoning folks, and give our friends here a tool to work with, that
Some of
sells. That
Ron,
sells.
some of that's being reviewed with the comprehensive plan, like, so the comprehensive plan has a lot of ideas, and then once that gets codified, then some of those zoning changes can start rolling.
Yeah, well,
As far as your,
There needs to be some timing interaction here, it seems to me, because
yeah,
getting that moved along so that we could represent to X restaurant that, hey, it'll take 18 months for you to get your permits to build in Austin, and here it'll be 6.
That's
And
that's
fundamentally, I think we're using the same building code. We're just using the building code and not all the overlay crap that the city of Austin
Right.
lays on.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
we hear all the time how hard it is to do anything
Yeah.
in the city of Austin. So you're exactly right. That's a huge benefit
Yeah,
being
and
able
I'm
to.
not talking about promising to cut corners. I'm just saying that we have a smaller bureaucracy.
Yeah.
No, that's a
and a
great
different
point.
agenda with respect to growth than maybe the People's Republic does.
Exactly.
What did you say?
People's Republic.
It's no, you're exactly right though. It is that's a huge benefit.
With our new tax bills, we really can't afford to do anything but walk across the street.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Any tax dollars that they bring in can help offset,
Yeah.
property tax in the city of Rollingwood. So
Yeah,
that
no, that's
actually is
true. I mean, there's
valid point.
there's quite a few properties here that are not bringing in much sales tax or not bringing in those other things. So you bring in more sales tax,
Yeah.
you're able to, like you said, offset the property tax. We see that happen a lot of times.
Yeah, you won't see 6-figure property tax increases. Maybe.
Yeah. Like I said, I almost passed out last night. So
So Aaron, it sounds like sort of next steps are you getting with Ashley and us having a meeting with, I'm sure it's parts of council, mayor,
Yep.
about this developer and interest of these kind of top 3 restaurants that have an interest of coming, and figuring out if there are incentives or kind of just like, the way-
Exactly.
how we're going to engage with them.
yeah, what I'd like to do is
Yeah.
I'll get with Ashley and we'll get that scheduled for sometime
Okay.
in the next couple of weeks. And figure out what what his ideas are. I think there's been some plans put together or some initial plans that he's talked about. So maybe sit down, kind of talk through what that could look like, could look like. Hey, no, actually you can't do this, but here's something we'd be interested in. Kind of figure out a middle ground there because ready to start redevelopment tomorrow.
I'm sure Ashley knows this as well, but whatever that process is, as soon as possible as it can be transparent to the community, be a good idea to do that.
I would completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
whatever that date is. If it's now, that's fine. If it's, after initial meeting.
Or
We-
building up the commercial corridor, which is exactly what the community wanted, so.
Yeah, correct. I know.
Moving all
I'm,
in the right direction.
I'm just making sure, and you know this from all
I
the
know.
crap we've
My
gone through.
recommendation would probably be to have an initial meeting.
Yeah.
we
Internally,
need to
and then
understand
figure
what they're
out what the,
expecting,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this has been super helpful, Aaron, and thank you
Awesome.
for your hard work, and this is very exciting.
And the other feedback is we should, based on your initial list, consolidate any opinions we might have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
and
any ads we
Or
might
any,
have.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
and let me know if there are ads. And
Yeah.
what we'll do is, I don't want to just go after every retail and every restaurant, but we'll look at those suggestions y'all have
and see if they.
and tell you, hey, yes, this is a great fit, but this one right here, it's not, and here's why.
Yeah.
They need spacing 8 miles between their locations. This is only 4.
Right.
So if y'all could help with that, that'd be awesome. We're ready to start. I'd like to maybe get a first round of emails, conversations going before the Vegas conference, which is May 22nd through 24th. So if I could have something maybe in a couple weeks, or some at least thoughts or
Yeah.
comments in a couple weeks, that'd be awesome.
Okay,
And we should focus on traditional retail. I mean, I don't think things like banks, mortgages,
No, I think
things
we
like
need
that, they're not gonna drive, they're not gonna
Restaurants.
drive revenue. So like, I just was
We have enough
making
No.
sure that we're on the
So,
right mindset
yeah,
here.
so traditional retail, restaurants, anybody that's gonna be a sales taxpayer.
Yep.
Y'all are obviously landlocked, and there's not a tremendous amount of sites, so that's why
Yep.
even medical uses and those sort of things, you're not getting.
Yep, I just wanted to state the
So-
obvious,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
just to make sure.
Did you contact the hospital to see what's going on?
So I haven't. We did a couple of years back. We have not talked to them recently, but that's one that we need to follow up with.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a big piece of land.
That was
Absolutely.
a big one that was, and you'll see that when you look through the report of the hospital zoning is crushing us right now.
Yeah.
It's a large plot of land that's allocated for hospital use.
Phil, what could we do to facilitate what the council wants to do about the master plan? I mean, is any of that work that the council wants to do within our ambit of this group, or
Hey, if we're gonna have this question, why don't we let Phil come up to the microphone so we can talk through it?
Recording.
Yeah.
So, Phil McDuffie, 4711 Timberline. Last night, there was discussion about the master plan, and this topic did come up that there are changes to our commercial corridor and the zoning and some of the restrictions on this commercial corridor that have been suggested in the study with the master plan, that type of thing. My understanding from what I heard last night was the master plan needs to be adopted before those can actually be codified into our code of, what do retailers, what are they being held to, what are they not being held to, and that type of thing. So I know that my read was there's a strong desire to get the master plan adopted as quickly as possible for those reasons. At the same time, there is a desire to revisit some of the issues that were left strategically out of discussion for the master plan. I don't think that'll significantly slow it down. But I know that there is some desire to maybe look at and expand on what was looked at in the master plan, or perhaps the way the survey was worded in certain situations, getting clarity on what the community exactly feels and wants in regards to those issues.
so is this an administrative issue, or is this a political issue of making sure that we're carrying through with what the population wanted,
I would say both.
Okay. Megan, did you attend this meeting last night, or?
No, sir.
Okay.
I watched it online.
Pardon?
I watched it online.
So if you have anything that,
No, I mean, I think that's appropriate.
And I
I
get,
mean,
the only-
that was my
yeah.
read of what was
the only
going on.
follow-up question I would have to it is, the master plan has been in development now for what, 2 years? I mean, not that one,
it was just a year around.
I don't know. I'm not
Over a
great.
year.
Well, so I've been on RCDC now for 2 years.
I'd say it was,
Things don't, my point is, with the master plan, and we're trying to seize an opportunity here, and I understand the master plan is its own entity, but like at some point, if it doesn't get adopted, it's gonna, I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't.
No,
But-
some form of a master plan, I'm almost positive, is going to get adopted,
Okay,
okay?
it's just a matter of when.
But what I would,
I can't imagine that anyone from city council is going to say, no, we're not going to be supportive of RCDC having a conversation with businesses to bring them in. I mean, I think that's-
Exactly.
I
And we
think
can only do
that's
so
the-
much.
and I think,
Message.
Yeah.
what I would, of course, I can't speak for the entire council
Yeah.
or anything like that, but what I would imagine is if there are opportunities and you guys are seeing roadblocks and seeing obstacles come up, come to the mayor, come to city
Yeah.
council, and let
Okay.
us work through those specific issues rather than us, like
Mhm.
Is there,
But
imagining
it may be
there's.
kind of a chicken and egg issue here, Phil. and
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at, and my question.
well, I think
to
we'll
our-
have that answered too more, Brian, once this initial meeting would happen with Aaron and the city of kind of understanding like where are the locations they're looking at? Is it a property where there might have to be rezoning? You know, that, we'll have to tackle that once
Well,
we learn more.
and that's why the question though to the attorneys about cities are required to have a master plan. We
Yeah.
probably have one somewhere in a file that's ancient somewhere. And zoning is supposed to be in compliance with the master plan. Now, what the facts are on that, I have no idea.
No, that's fair.
But this gentleman and his group needs to have some certainty to get out there and sell off of.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm interested all of a sudden in the master plan.
Yeah.
What's the current timeline, Phil, on the master plan getting adopted?
Yep.
There's no way to put a drop dead date on that right now.
I mean, is there a target or?
The target is to get it done as quickly as possible, but without it being incorrect and that type of thing. I also think there was possibly an indication of getting it adopted with the realization that amendments may need to be made as situations arise,
So a living,
It-
living document master plan.
I would,
Got it.
Right.
I would certainly think that any master plan should be
Yeah.
Yeah.
somewhat of that,
Well, and I think
given
this
It
is-
would
the
seem like it's
dynamic
most benign
nature of
document in
the world.
now, and there's like,
Everything in Rollingwood
takes
is
in everybody's
zoned, I
opinion.
think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and we
so-
just had a new
Target.
GIS map put out with all the zoning and everything's been corrected. They spent a lot of time getting all that squared
So-
away.
Our retail friends have the data of what the current zoning is. Do we have multiple zoning categories for commercial property in this city?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then some of it was like.
which
oh,
was a part of
duplicate.
the
It's
master
all in
plan
there.
vision
It's-
to like,
It's very strange.
to fix that. I mean, I think that was the end goal here. So I think it's all sort of like the timing is sort of serendipitous that all this is happening. So I can't imagine that anyone on city council is going to roadblock us, but to your point, Brian, we need to sort of get in front of this and figure out. Is there an updated version of that, Phil? Of the master plan? Because I know I've seen several rendition, but is there like a most up-to-date online?
It's on our website, and I believe it came to the RCDC for review
Right.
after adoption. There have not been
Changes since, okay. And
There's
most-
been discussion at the
Yeah.
council level. They've held workshops on individual sections to
Right.
get more community input.
Yeah.
It's going to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their next regular meeting.
Okay.
Per the statute, it has to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission or your planning department, so just
Right.
giving everyone's input one final time before.
Yeah, and if you haven't read it, I would go read it. I mean, majority of the changes from what I can recall, and Phil, keep me honest on this, is like the parking situation and a lot of the commercial corridor spots. Like, it needs to be fixed. Of moving us closer to the street versus so far back, right? So they're actually pretty thoughtful things, and I mean that's one example. But I didn't see anything in there that was a roadblock for moving us forward. Now the zoning piece, we'll have to address that. But again, I feel very strongly that I can't imagine.
The zoning side is not my concern. It's everything else that's in that it will hold up us getting the zoning and everything else done. out
Well,
of the
and that's
master
where I
plan.
would say that,
And that's out of our control, yes, but like
Yes.
it is now this giant
I know.
bloated, for lack of a better word, document.
Yeah.
true. However, what I would say is that's where I would say, if you run into any kind of
Yeah.
roadblock, if
Yeah.
there's any kind of impediment, have a conversation,
Right.
and everybody's on board to
Yeah,
try
I think that's good
to
advice, Phil.
get that stuff resolved as quickly as possible. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be worried about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But it's,
But I would go read it if you haven't read it. And I think, but that's what our committee's about, right? Now we have this opportunity to sort of seize it with Aaron, and we as a committee need to have a strong voice in it, right, Phil? I mean,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
So I think-
I would say every committee,
Yeah,
we welcome all feedback.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I just
know.
had the same
Just to do
interpretation you
something
did.
with it.
I reread it and I was like, this makes sense. A lot of good additions. What could you
I
possibly?
mean, what I remember of the master plan, there were discussions of potentially changing some of the setbacks
Yeah.
if certain remediation is done, moving things closer to the street, sharing driveways
Right.
between multiple retailers.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually
Sharing
an
parking with
incentive for the
multiple
businesses
yes.
and making it better for
Like,
them.
so those are the things that specifically
Yeah.
are, just from my recollection of watching the process go through, that those are the things were being addressed. So,
Yeah,
That's great.
so.
okay. Thanks, Phil.
one,
Thanks.
Brian, you had
one
another
thing
question?
we might get, just on our plate, or on our minds, is that one way that people facilitate getting leases signed is by contributions to the landlord's, cost of doing renovations to bring in the tenant.
Sure.
And we don't really have a budget for that at all, but that is something that this committee could do something about if we would do something
Yeah.
about. But we've gotta go then through city council to get approval to do such a thing, and so you can't offer that up immediately, but we ought to be thinking about the possibility of,
Wasn't gonna lead with
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we
No.
so
but that is on.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of incentives unless they're absolutely necessary.
Right.
Going to be somebody that's going to come in and make a big change, bring people in from outside of the community, or bring in more sales tax and those sort of things. But what we can do, I think, is look at each prospect individually and what's needed, and that's where we can come back to y'all with suggestions or recommendations. And typically, if it's one of the ones on the list, and they're looking to take over 2,500 square feet in a shopping center. TI is this much. This is what tenant improvements is. This is what they need. Hey, here's what we know these 5 other communities in the region did for them, and we can come back and make suggestions that
Give
then
us
y'all.
some data
Yeah.
points to,
Yeah. But it sounds like the overall message was demographics are headed in the right direction and land's
Absolutely.
scarce and don't negotiate against ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
Great.
And
Okay.
most of these prospects know they're going to have to pay pretty well
Right.
to get into these areas. So, or to get into this area. So, if they're on that list, they're a fit for a reason.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Aaron.
Awesome. Yeah.
Really
Thanks.
appreciate
If
your
y'all have
time.
any other questions, let me know. I'll work on getting that meeting set up, and we can go from there.
Okay, and we'll get you any sort of additions or edits to the list.
That'd be awesome.
Okay,
All right.
Thank
Thank y'all.
okay.
thank you.
So moving on to number 4 is discussion on the RCDC financials through March 2022. Ashley.
Abel's not here again. Treasurer's not here again. I'll just go quickly through the financial analysis. It looks like sales tax revenue is up 22% compared to the prior year. As of March 31st, y'all were 50% of the way through the fiscal year, and you're already 58% of the way through the collections. I think we probably projected a little
Low.
or budgeted a little conservatively, just not really sure. It seems like we're doing okay there. As far as other stuff, not a lot extra is reflected in the financials yet. I have a couple checks that need to be signed in here with 2 of our members so we can get those reflected on the books. But other than that, the retail coach stuff is coming out of your business promotion line item.
When do we owe them the next installment?
I would assume, I don't know what their timeline
Halfway.
is. Is it halfway through, like
That's
maybe every 6 months? And I think we
Yeah.
kind of go on a yearly. So.
I think we paid one up front, and then we owe them a second payment at some
Yeah.
point.
I believe
Mm-hmm,
it's
somewhere down the
halfway through.
line. And hopefully the next month will reflect changes and other things y'all have budgeted, the MOPAC legal expenses. The way it is currently, we don't want anyone to have to wait for me to get checks to you guys to get them signed, so the city pays for things and then RCDC reimburses them. So I have a check in here that needs to be signed, and I think some other paperwork to change signers at the bank still. So
Okay.
hopefully we have that reflected for the next month. So
Okay, thanks, Ashley.
all right.
Okay, so everyone, get your ideas to Ashley or removal from the list of great retail to bring into the city, and we'll just keep forging ahead. I'm gonna close the meeting here at 12:58. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Great.